Hi, my name is Alex Eaton. For my assignment today, it's kind of similar to Dr. Cruz's video that we watched, but I'm going to talk about turf grass and the ecosystem of that and how it relates with a golf course. I do work at a golf course. I've been here for 6 years, just over 6 years, and this is what I'm pursuing my environmental horticulture degree for, and so I'll just kind of base my knowledge for this assignment off of that, and hopefully I can get it right. And like I said, it's kind of similar to Dr. Cruz's, so we'll see. So the turf grass and the ecosystem of a golf course, there's the three impacts, either positive or negative, that surround the environment of this. Well, some positive impacts, obviously, the positive, I know there's a lot of people that dislike turf and think it's a big waste and think we put too much into it and, it's not good for anything, but I'm a turf guy, so I like to see the positive in it. So the positives, the turf grass ecosystem of a golf course provides, just home and nutrition to many insects and microorganisms and things, and a lot of those which we don't like on the golf course. Certain insects that we don't want, at least on the greens. But other areas aren't a big deal. But earthworms are a big one. On a golf course, you see them everywhere, the greens especially, because the grass is so short. You'll really notice them, and so it provides a home for that ecosystem of earthworms, and we know what benefit earthworms are and can be for the soils and natural aeration. Another impact of turf grass, a negative one for sure. People bring up often, the amount of irrigation it takes to run or keep alive turf. So, that's negative. People would argue a lot about the amount of fertilizer, pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, all that we put onto the turf. They would argue that's a big negative. But if they really understood, the guidelines that we have to follow, the records we have to keep to prove to the state that follow the laws, that we're not harming the insects and the wildlife and the, trees and all those ecosystems, we're not harming that because there's certain standards and guidelines we have to follow. But, irrigation, people are going to say, well, it's negative, you got to water a lot. Well, maybe so, but our irrigation at my course anyways comes from a lake, which, most days that water is just overflowing, runs through a creek into a swampy land, and that never dries out because of us watering. So, you could argue either way, I guess, with that. So, but that could be a negative of turf ecosystems, is the amount of input of irrigation you have to put into it. And then another impact, besides providing, so it provides homes for insects and such, which, provide food for birds and wildlife. So that kind of maybe goes together. Okay, so we'll just count that as one. The negative, irrigation use, you can look at that as negative, but I tell you, like in the summer months when it's very hot and we irrigate, water stands on top of the irrigation head just a little. You see a lot of wildlife, birds, and squirrels, and small things like that drinking the water out of these little areas where it sets. So that could be a positive because it's providing water for the wildlife as well. And like I said, we take our water from a lake, which doesn't hurt the water level of the lake. In the hot, dry summer months when the water does get low, We have a recharge well that pumps back into the lake, so it never, harms fish or any of that. So, I mean, they all balance out. One way in which productivity of the ecosystem of turfgrass is measured would be mowing height, specifically our greens. The fairways, tees, and roughs, we just mow. They're set at a certain height, you mow them, some weeks 2-3 times a week because growing so well, and sometimes twice a month. It all depends on, so you measure it like that. But the greens especially, the mowers are equipped with buckets that catch the clippings, and so, I mean, we check that every day we mow. It's, whoever did the mowing that day, you ask them, how many times did you dump the buckets? For an 18-hole course, I prefer, roughly about 3 times. Every 6 greens dumping. That is a healthy green, but it's not going crazy. But, sometimes we're dumping. There's a few times we've dumped 6 or 8 times. I mean, that's a lot. Every 2 to 3 greens is a lot of grass. And then there's a lot of times where maybe you won't dump but 1 time all the way around all 18 holes. That's not growing very much. So, that's how we measure it, how we measure the productivity. One way we value the cultivated system, how we measure the value of it. Some people would say color. Okay, obviously, if it's a drought season, the color is brown because the grass went dormant because it's lacking water, so it's taking the energy out of the grass or the leaf blade and putting it towards the root so it doesn't desiccate, and obviously we know if that goes prolonged, obviously the plant will still desiccate, but for the most part it just goes into that dormant stage. That's why we lose the chlorophyll in the leaves and it goes brown. Okay, so they can measure that, the value, but a lot of it is root mass, and so, we take, just like Dr. Cruz in his video, he had that core sampler where he could take a core out, open it up and see the roots. We have that, and we measure roots a lot, and that's how we measure the value of our ecosystem, the root, the health of the plant. Major resources and inputs that are needed to sustain the cultivated ecosystem, obviously fertilizers and irrigation, which a lot of people don't like that, but we use that as well in crops and other things. Maybe not as much, but I don't know the regulations and boundaries for crops. I mean, if they can put out more at once, I don't know. But in the turf world of a golf course, I'll tell you, we use a lot of slow release fertilizers. So you put them out at very small rates multiple times throughout the year instead of just putting a big rate out at once, because you're going to lose that to wash off the top. You'll lose some, especially the more that's there, the more that's going to move. You'll lose that through the soil. So we put out lots of small applications, and like I said, they're slow release fertilizers, so that fertilizer sustains over a long period of time. Other inputs we use, we put out certain products that have microorganisms in them, so we can apply that to our spray mixes and spray it, and it applies these microorganisms to the soil. So that's a benefit. We spray it over the turf, which then goes into the soil, so it benefits the ecosystem. What other examples can I think of? Major resources, going back to the way we measure the productivity, the clippings, how much. Right now on the golf course, I'm spraying a lot of Trinexapex ethyl. Sorry, I can't quite remember the chemical name. Trinexapex ethyl, something like that. Anyways, it stimulates the growth of the plant upward. It slows that down, and it encourages it to grow outward. So it encourages, because we have Bermuda grass, encourages those stolons to, or rhizomes to spread outwards, and instead of growing so much up, it changes the energy of the plant. And so, that's a major thing we put in. It's just small things like that. When we aerify, we remove cores, removing the thatch layers, and add sand, or we add this porous material. It's really just ceramic material that is chopped up very fine. It looks like sand grains, but there's pores in it, and so it can hold moisture. And obviously that's only in with the first few inches, so it holds more moisture than sand does, and so it's going to help the plant. We're not going to have to irrigate as much. We also spray a wetting agent, excuse me, a wetting agent that will hold moisture at the surface, and so that's another thing that we apply to lower the amount of irrigation. A major trend or challenge in plant sciences that relates to this system, obviously we deal with a lot of, environmental things with the health of the turf. Excuse me. What insects or what disease or what is, affecting our turf, and we have to stay on top of that. And that is a challenge, because some days it's like, oh, this is something new we haven't seen before, so we have to contact somebody that does more of that in-depth studying, and they would know the answers, and so that's involved. And also anytime that it seems like you find a good product that works for certain herbicides or whatever, it is taken off the market because it's at the end of its time limit, and that patent is up, and it costs millions to relabel and repatent those materials, so they're usually just taken off the shelf. So then we have to go back to square one and finding new chemicals we can use. And so that's some of the challenges we deal with on that side. And also just we deal with the weather just like any ecosystem. It's too hot, it's too cold, it's rained too much, it hasn't rained enough. Getting that balance is hard. It's a science, getting everything down, but it's enjoyable and it's fun, and I've enjoyed working here over the years, and it's fun now that I'm getting towards the end of my college and I haven't taken all these classes, being able to apply between the two, just what I've learned and what I do at my job. Thank you.